dialing into that, Greg, what have been some of the innovations around well-being and mental health that you've seen employed with some success?
So we recently did some town halls in Hong Kong and Singapore, and just on some discussions around mental health and well-being. And we took a very simple program and then trained the HR team to be able to deliver it across the region. None of us are clinical psychologists or doctors, so there were much more sharing sessions about what are the types of issues that we can notice in the workplace and we may see with our colleagues. And when we notice those things, what should we be doing? How should we be addressing them? How maybe we have to intervene with people. And also things like I said before, is giving people some tips and tricks to sort of come down off of the intensity from time to time, because it can be quite intense personally and professionally. And we've even done some things that, we had signed up for doing lunchtime yoga in the office, in a couple of our offices. And of course, we can't do lunchtime yoga because we can only have two people in a room together. So we put those classes on virtually. And where we were in the past constrained by how many people could be in a classroom, 10 or 12 people, we had 30 or 40 people participating because they were doing it from their own space. So again, it's a positive that's come out of something that we couldn't have imagined, something being positive. And I think back 7-8 months when this started in Hong Kong, and I think to the amount of innovation that's happened, it's remarkable. We started a journey doing unconscious bias in Moët Hennessey training. And when COVID started, we thought, well, that's going to be on hold forever. Who knows when we'll get back to that? But now, of course, we can't imagine doing an unconscious bias training in person, because we just can. Everybody's accessible. They're there, and we can do those experiences virtually. So there's just little things like this that really change the perspective of how work's getting done and how people can do it in a healthy, more psychologically balanced way in the context that we're in now, which is not sitting in the office all the time.
So, Greg, you're a HR leader of a region with a global company, and you've got an HR team around you in different countries. How has the role of HR evolved through this period?
Yeah, somehow I have to say I'm blessed with a great team. And even you're even more aware of that in situations like the ones that we've been through. And you can dial back in Hong Kong over the past even year and a half when the protests started, and then we had COVID, and then we had the implementation of a national security law, and all of these things which make our employees not really know what's coming next. And the same thing across Asia Pacific. So we have had a team that has been extremely agile. And our role has in many ways been to think ahead of the business. And I'll take an example. We've been working very closely with the marketing leadership on mobility around the region. So trying to get our more junior talents highlighted and moving around for short-term assignments. Well, nobody's moving anywhere right now. And we've had to help them to think about virtual short-term assignments. So we have one of our top talents from India right now who's doing a short-term assignment with the digital team in Singapore. We'll have a talent in Taiwan who's going to be doing a short-term assignment with somebody as well in Singapore. We have a marketing director who's stuck in China, now assigned to his role in Vietnam from Shanghai. So these kinds of things, I think, when we first started the discussions, it was like, you can't do the job that way. Well, in fact, you can do the job that way. There's some things that aren't as effective, but in many ways, we wouldn't have been able to give people those kinds of short-term developmental assignments had we only thought of them as being physical location assignments. So I think our job in HR has been, let's think differently about this. A lot of these ideas we've always had in our mind, like, oh gosh, wouldn't it be great if we could just do these kinds of virtual assignments? Well, now's the time to try them out. So I feel very appreciative, actually, that the business has allowed us to push them in a way to think differently. And then that goes to organization. So we've recently made some pretty significant organization changes, which are in some way geographically agnostic. So we've started to think about co-locating department heads, co-locating functions, which if you had dialed back a year ago, I think we would have had a very hard time getting our minds around that. And so it's again been the HR team taking the lead on trying to craft those sort of solutions to the current issue, which will last much longer than just this current situation.
That's really interesting. The final area I want to delve into is just around what you said regarding the placement of roles in locations which are flexible, but obviously the hybrid working model now as well, where not everyone can be in the office, or numbers are restricted, or areas get locked down. But how do we approach an era ahead where we don't think about people being physically around us, but they may be, and some roles may pop up next to us, but they may not be next to us as well. So we move into this really expansive thinking around, where people sit, where people do roles, etc.
So I think it's a great question, and it's definitely an evolution. So again, if you had dialed back in our company a year or even 9 months ago, some of the discussions we're having now would have really just not been possible, about co-locating, about clustering markets or clustering responsibilities. And, frankly, part of it is driven by impacted results. So we have to react to what's happening in the market. And, necessity is the parent of innovation. So by the fact that we have to make some of these decisions and we can't physically move, then it's sort of pushed us to be maybe more innovative. But I think what is a call out, I think, is going to happen. We have to be mindful. And this really goes back to, I think, all of the progress we've made in inclusion over the past 9 months, with much more accessibility of leaders with their teams, and barriers between departments being lowered because of technology. I think as we have more co-location and more virtual work, in the past, that has put the people who are not physically in those places with their boss at a disadvantage, because it's harder to build a relationship. It's harder to create personal connection. And, there can be, over time, a disadvantage for those people in their career. So I think we're going to have to, while the innovation is great, and it does have some upside to people having opportunities where they may not have otherwise have had them, because maybe they have a family issue, maybe they have children they can't move with children, or an elder parent they can't move. So there may be opportunities for them to develop, but we can't lose sight of the fact that physical proximity can also create opportunity for people. So that's part of, I think, what we're going to have to continue to use these technology tools, use the engagement mechanisms that we've developed over time, to continue to make sure that people have full access and full opportunity, even in a more virtual working space.
Thanks, Greg, for your comments, and good luck on the next wave of freedom tonight.
Yes, I can't wait.